In the process, they're creating this cognitive dissonance in your child. There's a
Mhm.
dissonance between the person that the child is at school, the person the child is at home, that can't possibly be good for their mental health.
No.
And all this time, we have to remember you live in a community. So, can I ask, why are you talking to me from your car?
Um, well, because I don't really have a private place to talk talk about it. I can't like sit in a coffee shop and talk about it. Um, you know, right now my daughter's in college, so I have some free time, but this is like the most private place I can find.
Lydia McLaughlin was a standard California liberal who thought of herself as a good ally to gay and lesbian friends. In 2021, Lydia, now a mother of two, discovered that the Los Angeles school district was transitioning her daughter in secret. She had to fight to make them stop, but she did make them stop. Today, we bring you the story of a parent who fought the system and won, and how that battle transformed her from a mother into a fighter. Lydia, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
It's my understanding, Lydia, that you have a background from the 1960s, and your mother was kind of a hippie. Very California story. Can you just tell the listeners about yourself a little bit?
Sure, sure. Yeah, my family has deep roots in California, over 100 years of history here. We're Los Angelinos. I grew up in an area in LA called Echo Park. Um, my mom and dad were married when interracial marriages were still illegal. My mom is Jewish and my dad is Black. I was raised on the very tolerant liberal left Democrat. I am still registered a Democrat. I've been a Democrat for 36 years. My mom changed her name to a male name, Michael, in the 60s because she felt that her work would be taken more seriously as an artist. So I was the strange girl with a mom named Michael. My husband and I were married for 12 years. I always wanted to have kids. It was very difficult getting pregnant to the point where we thought we were going to have to do IVF. But luck had it. I got pregnant at 35 with my first child, my son. And then at 38, surprised, got pregnant with my daughter. And I knew right away, I just felt like I was having my daughter. And then we moved back. We were living in Hawaii at the time. And then we moved back to Los Angeles to a suburb outside of LA. So I was the bohemian living in the suburbs. In around first grade, my son was bullied to the point that no parent should have their kid being bullied. I made a decision to homeschool. At that point, I was going to homeschool my kids all the way through. Um, I was never going to put them in the public school system. My daughter had never been in the public school system, and around age 11, because I have a theater background, my first acting class was with All Gay Men, which was my mom's AA sponsor, a professional working actor, Michael Kearns, and it was just me. And so gay people have been in my life my whole life. And around age 11, I put my daughter in a theater class. And one day, picking her up, I thought, okay, I'm going to have 2 hours by myself. I'm going to let my kid do theater. I picked her up from school, from the theater class, and she got in my car and she declared that she was queer. And I said, well, let's investigate that word. What does that mean to you? And she didn't really quite understand what it meant. And she was still so little that she was still sitting in the back of my car. So I said, you have time to figure out who you are and what your sexual orientation is. And so that was the first beginning of a glimpse of sexual orientation. And then I started noticing girls in her theater class going from Charlotte to Charlie, some girl talking about pansexuality. And so I pulled her out of that and kind of just left it as that experience. And so, fast forward to the pandemic, everything goes online. Our homeschool life is shut down. We don't get to take classes. As homeschoolers, we really were out in the world. I'm an old school homeschooler where I did the learning at home. And I made the mistake of letting her have her computer in her bedroom. And like most parents during the pandemic, a lot of our kids got indoctrinated online. But what I really feel that she got introduced to gender identity and sexual orientation in the homeschool class from other homeschoolers that have never that were actually introduced to it in school. So they weren't like her, where she had been homeschooled her whole life. So my son wanted to go to public school, and I let him go first. And then she wanted to go in ninth grade as well. So they went to a special school that is located on a junior college campus, and they do high school and college classes at the same time. I had no idea that she was identifying as anything. The first week of school, she said, somebody asked me my pronouns, and I said, what did you say? And she said, just call me anything. The school years starts where she actually had a lot of anxiety. It was really difficult for her to get out of my car. And so I would ask the principal to like help me. They had social workers that would, and counselors that would like let me bring her in a little late. I asked for a 504 plan. They said that they couldn't do that for anxiety, which I've discovered actually they could have done that for her.
And how old was she when this happened?
She was 13.
Okay, and you discover these journals. Okay, talk about that.
So in the journals, I see her drawings of her body bloody, cut up, suicide ideation. She talks about her self-harm. She's cutting herself. Um, she needs to come out as trans. She needs to pick a name. So I knew at that point I needed to do a deep dive. I I didn't realize that my kids already had the language. Um, so I went, and Googled, and everything on Google was pretty much like P flag, glisten, like basically affirm your child and celebrate this identity. Like you have to affirm it. And I'm like, this can't this my kid is not trans. I said to myself, she could be gay, but this is not real. Like I knew two transsexuals growing up, Matt. I met a transsexual in the 70s and another transsexual from a very famous family in the 90s. I ran in the same circle of these Hollywood kids. So, and they were mainly men. So I'm like, there's no way my daughter is is a transsexual. So instead of Googling, I got on DuckDuckGo, and through DuckDuckGo, I was able to find uh, Fourth Wave Now, and somehow another I found my way to a wonderful Jungian therapist. Her name is Lisa Marciano. And then I don't know how I found myself on a site called ROGD parents, which ROGD stands for Rapid Onset Gender Dysphoria, that was coined by a researcher, Lisa Lippman. She started seeing these clusters of girls identifying as something. And so when I started reading these stories, Matt, I was like, oh my God, this is my kid. You could just basically take my daughter's name and insert it. They were all either on chronically online, lonely. My daughter's always longed to have like a best friend and friends, and they were, gifted or quirky, creative, sensitive. I was just blown away. So at that point, I reached out to try to get into a parent support group. And um, it took about 3 weeks, and I sat her down one day and I told her that we love her and that we're not going to affirm her, and that for the next 4 years while she's in public school, she needs to use her birth name.
So you are doing the authoritative parenting thing. You are
Mhm.
doing what they say to do in terms of drawing a clear boundary and insisting that, we have you till you're 18. And you discover that there is a whole lot, there is a whole cult apparatus, if you will, that
Mhm.
is undermining you as a parent. What was the first moment that you knew somebody was undermining you?
In ninth grade, when I discovered her year-end project, I saw that they had changed her name to a male name in her biology class. I asked her about it, if she had changed her name. And she said, no, I don't know why it's on there, or who put that there. So I asked the biology teacher, who put that there, and he answered me by telling me that kids can use a nickname as long as it goes along with their student ID number. And I said, this is not my child's nickname, and it needs to be removed. And he said that he would go in as an administrator and remove it.
And this turned out to be incorrect, right? He was not telling the truth.
No, he wasn't. I've recently discovered how it all happened. She is like most kids; they like to try on identities. It's a time of you know development for formation of who you are. And so she said, I just wanted to try on this name and the gender, and I just wanted to keep it with my friends. But a specific girl kept telling her she had to tell this biology teacher that he would change it for her. And so she told him, and sure enough, he did. He changed it for her. He I think took it upon himself to tell all the other teachers to start calling her this name. I have public records requests now that give a snapshot of when it changed around the spring semester after the winter break.
And what exactly changed?
They started calling her a male name, and the teachers would call her a male name on her email. She put the male name on all of her classwork. Um, and all her classmates were calling her this male name. And at this time, she was struggling academically. She had missed some time in school, and the principal had pulled her in her office and said that she knew that she was going by another name, and that she was mandated not to tell me, and also her teachers were mandated not to tell me.
Now, this, of course, is contentious. This idea
Mhm.
that they're not supposed to tell you about your
Right.
child's transgender identification. This is a very California thing.
Yes.
It comes down to a state law, AB 1266, and the interpretation in California of a federal law called FERPA, FERPA,
Hmm.
which you're not a lawyer,
No.
obviously, but you've probably had this explained to you by multiple lawyers by now. So, as a layman, can you explain for the audience what the impact of this California law and the interpretation of this federal law? Can you kind of lay out what they're doing there, the trick that they're playing to conceal this from you?
Yes. So they used AB 1266 as if uh, because of the being able to allow kids to use the bathroom or the sports or whatever, that actually that it that they're not allowed to tell a parent, because part of that law, Matt, they brought in the Human Rights Campaign at one point, and they trained my district. And the Human Rights Campaign basically told them that the law says that they're not, we'll just say, obligated to tell us parents, because we may be abusive or non-affirming. But what I know now, that I did get a lawyer to read the law for me, um, because they used it twice to deny me a meeting. The law does not say, AB 1266 does not say that a child can demand to be called another name, and that a teacher is not obligated to conceal and deceive a parent and not tell them. So once I found out about the secret social transition, it was out. She was out. She was out with everybody except me. So it was no longer secret when I was asking for these meetings, but they continued to use this law to justify continuing this psychological intervention with my child, and continue to they like lock down to socialize, to continue to socially transition my kid. Now, where comes in is I had somebody from a wonderful organization called the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. They do a little bit of this gender stuff on the side, and he helped me do my first public records request. And this is where the FERPA comes in. As a parent, we have a right to have access to our child's learning, like records. Um, but they treated me, when I asked for my first round of it, because I didn't know really what I was doing. And this is what parents, I want to give parents the power to know what they're doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I asked for everything with the fake name and my daughter's name, which was great. They gave me all my records from my homeschool years, but nothing that I needed. But then I also asked for the gender support plan for the school district, or any of this, any training that they use for the stuff. And they pushed back and made me feel the first time around as if I was a third party, as if I did not have a right to my daughter's education records. Um, at this point, I didn't have a lawyer yet. So I said, there's got to be a lot, there's got to be laws and ed codes, something on my side as a parent. I got to have some parental rights. So I scoured our educational codes, our California laws, and I just repeated myself over and over again. I do not consent for you to call my daughter by this male name. I do not consent, over and over and over again. And I have a right to these things. And I want any gender support plan. And the pushback brought me what the district does. They sent me back their gender support plan, but they didn't have one for her. But it had, how they do the gender support plan for the kid. And then most districts across our nation have these things. There's either, it's called Infinite Campus or Aries, but so I can see like what my daughter's homework and classwork and schedule and all that stuff. So I see my daughter as, her name, and then my daughter sees herself as the male name. And it gives the whole way that the school district actively is deceiving the parent and changing the name of the child without the parental consent. So I continue doing my FERPA. I just keep asking for more stuff, and a wonderful woman in the district called me and said, we have these emails. We're going to send them to you too as your public records request. I'm like, okay. Matt, I had no idea what I was getting. My first batch was 345 emails. So, again, I'm just a dumb parent going through these emails going, why is there so many emails about my kid? And they look kind of innocuous, if that's the right word. And then all of a sudden I see like emails with my daughter's name changed. I asked for a second meeting because they made a third ID for my daughter. The school has two IDs, one for the high school, one for the college. Well, somebody was so nice, they made her a third ID with a male name on it. And when I discovered that, there was just some reference to like kids need to have their IDs. It's really dangerous. So I'm like, yeah, it is really dangerous, especially when you're making a third ID with a fake name on it, with falsified identification. I would like to take this opportunity to meet with you and have a meeting. So they sent me back again. We can't meet with you. Here's section 8 of AB 1266. Read this. This is why. And in that, it basically says like a 2-year-old knows their gender identity. And so I was just exasperated. So again, I continue to get help. I meet a wonderful MD who's a parent advocate for an organization called GenSpect. And she helps me with my 2-minute speech to go to a board meeting because I'm just feeling like no one's helping me. The principal's not helping me. The superintendent's not really responding to me. So I go to my first school board meeting and I say, how does a parent get a meeting with their principal? My daughter is totally normal when she's not at school. And then when she's at school, she's a whole different person. And that night, a board member, his name is Joe Messina, he got up, gave me his card and said, call me. So I called him and he's like, I know this lawyer. He works for a law firm called Pacific Justice Institute. He's the president. His name is Brad Dacus. He's here in town. He can give you a few minutes. So I meet with Brad. And at this point, because I went to the meeting, all of a sudden they want to now have a meeting with my husband and I. I meet Brad and he says, you're in California. There's a law if you don't affirm your child that CPS can have her removed for not affirming her, that it can be considered abuse. And that really scared me, Matt. And then, can you move out of California? Can you put her in a different school? And my husband and I, we discussed it and he's like, this principal's dropped anchor. She's not going to help you. So let's just forget this meeting. Let's just concentrate on our daughter and just really try to, stay connected. So we're like, no, thanks. We don't want a meeting. I, through my public records request, see the assistant superintendent who was very instrumental in guiding the principal, saying the mom came in last night to a board meeting with this claim that there's no, she can't get a meeting with you. Let's set up a meeting and I'd like to be there. And we'll strategize. So they're strategizing what to say to me. And I'm told by the board member, I just want to let you know, heads up, they're planning to let they're gonna kind of ambush you with the assistant superintendent. And that's really one of the big reasons why I decided I don't know what they're gonna do in that meeting. I don't want it. Um, I continue to stay connected to my daughter. Then I get connected to another lawyer, Kevin Snyder with Pacific Justice Institute, and that's who read the law for me. Um, I continue to get batches and batches. I have over 1,000 emails. And in there is the core of school district strategizing against me as a parent. Like, oh, the law says, these LGBTQ kids, we really can't tell the parent this. This is very sensitive material. And, um, do they want to change their name on the yearbook? The parent would find out. The principal at one point took great pleasure in calling my daughter the male name at least 7 times in the email, saying, formally known as, her biological name. And I'm like, I never changed it.
So I just have to pause here and
Yeah.
say the principal that is lying to you,
Hmm.
and this person I'm thinking is probably not a practicing psychotherapist.
No, she's not.
Okay. And the teachers, like the biology teacher, the math teacher, are any of the teachers, to your knowledge, a practicing psychotherapist?
No.
So the school is doing a powerful psychosocial intervention on your child. None of them are practicing psychotherapists, but they are doing this against your will. They are
Hmm.
lying to you while they do it. They're doing it behind your back. You are the only one being kept in the dark about it. It's not a secret to anyone else because you've got hundreds of emails about it. They're chattering nonstop in the emails
Hmm.
about your daughter being this special new sacred class at transgender. And everybody at school knows you're the one who is being prevented from having input.
Hmm.
It's supposed to protect the child, but it's actually become a protection from accountability for these bureaucrats, these
Hmm.
non-practicing psychotherapists who are doing psychotherapy on your child.
Right.
And as you say, it is because they have been informed by a kind of Stonewall law. For listeners who are unfamiliar, Stonewall is the organization in the United Kingdom that spent years misinforming British organizations, government entities, organizations, nonprofits, that sort of thing, about the law so that the gender rules all over the United Kingdom got bent completely out of shape without a basis in law. And then you have that Supreme Court decision in the UK that upends everything. Everything's all thrown up into chaos because they did that, right? Stonewall really messed up. They set up a whole lot of employers in the UK for judgments in the employment courts, right? Maya Forstater being the most famous example. So what they're doing in California is they're setting these people up for massive potential liability, right? And in the process, they're creating this cognitive dissonance in your child. There's a
Hmm.
dissonance between the person that the child is at school, the person the child is at home, that can't possibly be good for their mental health.
No.
And all this time, we have to remember you live in a community. So can I ask, why are you talking to me from your car?
Um, well, because I don't really have a private place to talk talk about it. I can't like sit in a coffee shop and talk about it. Um, you know, right now my daughter's in college, so I have some free time, but this is like the most private place I can find.
I am reminded of what I heard from Jamie Reed and from Eitan Heim about being a whistleblower and finding yourself living by the Moscow rules of being a CIA agent in Cold War Moscow, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it feels like you don't have a safety, you don't have no safe space, so to speak, in which you are free to speak. And perhaps that, is part of this story, I think, is how alone do you feel? How alone are you?
Um, at that time, Matt, I was pretty alone. You know, I started to feel less alone when the board member um, gave me his card, and I did start to go to support meetings. But then you always go back and you're alone. Your family doesn't really understand it. Friends that don't have kids in it don't really understand it. That I had a theater friend. We were friends for 27 years. And I was telling him, look, I'll accept my daughter as gay, but she is not trans. And he's like, but you're supposed to love your kid unconditional. And he was really mad at me because it turned out that his sister, again from a very well-known movie family, uh, transed her son when he was really young. And when I met the son, he was about 10. So they're androgynous at that point. And this was way before it was really on anybody's radar. So he's like, I'm so upset that you would do that. Like you should love your kid. And so a friendship ended over it. So friendships ended over it. People stopped talking to me. So you end up pretty isolated. And as a parent, you kind of go to a dark place because you feel like, okay, am I the insane person? Like everybody's, accommodating her. I mean, it could have been so easy for me, man, if I had just said, okay, we'll get you the binder, we'll get you the testosterone. It's a very, very lonely. Uh, but I think because of my upbringing and my crazy mom, who really was a non-conforming woman, it gave me a fight in me that I'm like, I'm not gonna let these people do this to my kid.
You have no very little support. You
Hmm.
some support, but at the same time, that sense of your community is sort of crumbling, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and this is where we should introduce your child's friend. This was a
Okay.
older trans-identified student that she encountered at the GSA Club, which the GSA Club, it is not what it was. Certainly not what it was intended to be when I was coming up in high school, right? And you eventually had to tell this person to stop contacting your child, right?
Hmm.
Let's
Hmm.
talk about the approved influences on your child. You're a bad influence on your child, but what about this approved influence on your child?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the GSA Club used to be the Gay Straight Alliance. Well, it changed into the Gender Sexuality Alliance. Gender Sexuality Alliance. And they were watching like slideshows on, pick a gender, asexual, aromantic. So she met this older girl, um, who I saw perform at a year-end performance, and she just looked like a young lesbian to me. Well, I found out that she had given my daughter a binder. I found out this by seeing text messages, and my daughter didn't like the binder. She said it was too tight, so that she decided to give her some breast tape. And the older child was saying, oh, they just think that all transgender people are predators. We're not predators. So she's kind of manipulating my child, who is 2 years younger than her, into like, well, I'm not preying on you. I'm helping you. And my daughter asking like, oh, when can you get me some more of that tape? And it really helps my dysphoria. And they're talking about dysphoria. And then they're talking about euphoria. And like again, my kid just wants to have friends and wants to be accepted. And the older child says, well, we can use funds to get you a different one. So that means the funds that they're raising in this club, which is pushed by there is an organization of GSA clubs, that they're going to get her another one. And so when I discovered these, I knew as I looked into this girl's Instagram, which was open at the time, that she was 18. So, and I knew at this point too that the principal's not going to get this girl to stop. They think that I'm just, I'm Satan. So I contacted her through Instagram and I said, "You're 18. Stop talking to my child. Don't give her anything." And I saw her at this next year-end performance, and she had a croaky voice, which means that she had started testosterone. And I said, I'm really sad that you started testosterone. And I talked to her about the effects that were going to happen to her. And I said, just stay away from my kid. And sincerely, a concerned mom, or love a mom, like a mom. Like I'm like, this is coming from a mom. Like, leave my kid alone. So this kid actually went to a couple teachers, and told them that I had contacted her, and she was really, really upset. And again, I see this through the internal emails, and the principal's saying she contacted the student, and she's telling her to leave her daughter alone. And then the principal actually makes up a story about me, Matt. She makes up a story that there was this curly haired, fuller set woman, which was a nice way of telling me I'm a little plump. Um, and she got in a fight with a trans-identified 14-year-old kid about their display about anti-bullying. And she's like, it's all coming into view now. So they were really painting me as if I am this combative woman that hates trans kids. But there are no trans kids, but hates these kids that are identified.
In 2023, after all this rigmarole about social transition, you find out that they have continued after you told them to stop.
Mhm.
So, talk about that. What did you do next?
So I knew the most important thing, and I really want parents, when they're listening, the most important thing when your kid is in this is to stay connected. Um, her, te- my daughter and we spent over 190 hours watching a show called Riverdale. So I knew at least I had her 1 hour a week to myself, and we would talk about it. And then when she was little, when she was 7, she said, well, one day I want to go to Paris. I said, well, when you turn 16, I'm going to take you. I have a couple wonderful Parisian friends. I did a co-production when I was an actress with these Parisians, and I still have friends after 25 years. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to go visit them. We're going to go to Paris, and then we're going to go to London. And I'm like, I'm taking my daughter out of the country for like as long as I could. So almost a month we were out of the country. And when we were there, I said, if you go back and ask to be called this name, I'm done. We're going back to homeschooling. I can't do it anymore. I'm exhausted. I can't do it. Um, and I had meetings with the superintendent at this point. And they just kept telling me over and over again, Matt, that, if she wants to be called this name, like, what are we going to do? And like you brought up Stonewall. So our Stonewall, our equivalent to Stonewall is the Human Rights Campaign. The Human Rights Campaign really hits home that they have to, affirm these kids. And again, it's their interpretation, their bad interpretation of these laws. They're incorrect. Um, So when we got back, we were going to have another meeting with the school district. Again, we were already negotiating. And I said, look, I just want to be notified if she wants to be called this name, because I asked the teachers to stop on my own. But at this point, because of the psychological intervention that they're doing with my kid, they're locking her in. And she's got this power now. They put all the power in our kids' hands. So when I told her, look, you need to tell the teachers to stop, and I'm going to tell the teachers to stop. Well, I did, and she did, and then she turned around and said, just keep calling me this name, because it gives her power over me. I mean, that's what teenagers do. They're supposed to rebel and push back and test boundaries with their parents. And we're supposed to go, okay, well, within limits and boundaries, we ultimately want to keep you safe. And so when we got back from that summer, they notified me that she was asked the teachers to be called a name. I said, let's have a meeting. And so I sat her down and said, this is it. I'm going to write this thing out. It's basically a statement. My parents know best. That the teachers colluded against my parents. I am to be called by my birth name for the 11th grade and the 12th grade year. And the social transition is to stop. And I had her sign it. I mean, you might say I forced her, but that was the ultimatum for her to stay in the school. So she signed it. We had our meeting. Again, in the meeting, the superintendent, who's gone now, the assistant superintendent is gone as well. He's like a politician. He kept going round and round with me. Like, what are we going to do if she asks, to be called this name, this male name again? Like, by law, we have to call her. And I go, I'll sue you. And my husband, it was a little bit more stronger than that. He's like, I didn't know you were going to get froggy, but I just went around the room and looked him in the face. I said, I'm going to sue you. And then when I wanted to ask the principal, I said, can you walk me through like when you pulled my daughter into the office and told her she couldn't tell me? And the superintendent wouldn't let her answer. And at that point, they had my daughter's signed statement. And when I said, I'll sue you, it took about 3 weeks later, the school district agreed with my lawyer that they would stop calling her the male name. And so they
So,
stopped calling her the male name in 11th grade.
so they wouldn't listen to you. They wouldn't listen to the child, but they did eventually listen to lawyers.
Right.
Another interesting thing there is that you did take an out-of-country trip. I
Hmm.
have seen that listed among the things that people do to try to claw back their kids from the transgender cult. And it does seem to have an effect that when you remove them from not just the society that they're in, their social setting, but from, all that they're used to. You take them to a completely foreign, exotic environment. Sometimes it tends to help sort of snap them out of it back to embodiment. If you're learning to body surf on some exotic beach, you can't really think about your gender very
Right.
much. And, drawing an ultimatum, again, boundaries, authoritative parenting, it's all coming out of the literature at me in your story.
Hmm.
So let's talk about something that did turn up in your research on your child, something that has to do with the human rights campaign that you mentioned a minute ago. And
Hmm.
I think January Littlejohn has presented at GenSpect about this. This is the Gender Support Plan.
From what I discovered, they never made a gender support plan for her. But what I've learned from a friend of mine, Aaron Friday, they have something what they call a shadow file that they use. And I think that's what they did for my daughter, where they, let all of the teachers and everybody, administrators, call her this name and everything. So they're changing everything, but there's no paper trail for it. at all. So a gender support plan for parents to really understand is if they are doing it, they pull your kid in and they're asking them like, are you supported at home? Are your parents, affirming or not affirming? Do you have a safe person? It's it's like 4 pages, and I can't remember what book it's from, but it's actually from some book. It's not even like a legal document. It's just this thing that came from some book, and schools have been told that they need to implement it. And each school district um, has a different plan because public record requests now are my jam. So I did a whole public records request in the elementary school district here. They have one gender support plan that's 6 pages, one that's 4 pages, one that's, 2 pages. But really, the gender support plan is really how to conceal and deceive the parent. So they're on ramping our kids with no off ramp. We really need to hit home that they're only onboarding our kids. There's no space for the kid, even if the kid, like, if the parents never found out, Matt, and they wanted to desist on their own, how do they do that with this gender support in place? And the teachers calling it this name. They don't want to disappoint adults. It's easy to, kind of save face or lose friends, but adults, like there's no way for the kid to desist if they have a gender support plan set in place. And from the discussion that I've had with lawyers, these gender support plans and the unofficial name change is an unofficial emancipation of the child, of the parent. It's the beginning of the emancipation of the child.
What did desistance look like in your child?
So desistance was, we're in our about third year of desistance. So it started with like, hey, I'd like to have some press-on nails. As silly as it is, a lot of people don't want to be like gender stereotypes, but there are these typical girly things and typical boy things. And it started with press on nails, and I think I'm going to grow my hair out. And I used to call the uniform. There's a uniform for girls, and it's like a grandpa style. It's like, let me wear grandpa's clothes and make sure that they're 5X. So the clothes got smaller and smaller and smaller, where she would used to say, oh, I don't like the sleeves because they touch my arms. She started wearing girl shirts and then started doing a little bit of makeup and actually just taking care of herself. I mean, there was literally points where she wasn't very washing her hair or just not really caring about herself, like just general hygiene, right? So it was like growing out her hair, wearing her makeup, and now to where she's full on back to her original girly girl self. She was always a girly girl. She loves fashion. So that, and then also being more part of the decisions was also being more open to conversations about this stuff. I'm one of those weird moms where I actually think that they should see some of it. So there's these great series called Identity Crisis. I forget who puts them on, but there are detransitioners. They're about 15 to 20 minutes. They're not too heavy. They're not too graphic. So I had her watch, several of those. And then I had her watch a documentary that I know the filmmaker. It was Generation Affirmation, but now it's called No Way Back. She sat quietly and watched it. We didn't even discuss it. I didn't do discussing. I said, we're going to watch this. And that was it. I don't think you need to discuss it because they've taken in the story. Does it change their mind? I don't know. Um, I would send her in articles. Uh, if she read them, great. If not, at least I knew she read a couple sentences. But we started to talk more, you know, um, about the harms and the images. You know, these kids are just looking at images. Uh, when I discovered that she was looking at images of double mastectomies with tattoos over them, I'm like, okay, you do understand that is harm. It's just another form of your cutting. Um, so the road to desistance is also like accepting her body. Like it's okay for her body to be looked at, right? The jeans fit right, shirts fit right, you know, no more sports bras, real bras, you know, just really kind of falling in line with uh what it would have been like as they used to talk about you know, the watchful waiting, right? Uh the 80 to 90% of these kids watchful waiting. Some are straight and some are gay. I don't like to talk about where my kids end up because I feel that's her personal journey, but definitely more more and more well adjusted. The thing that I see the leftovers of the 2 years of full on battle with these people, these I like to call them misguided and well intentioned. You know, I don't want to say they're all evil, Matt. I really think these people think that they are doing the right thing, even though they're making us parents out to be the villains. The psychological 2 years of splitting herself, um, which I learned as an actual thing that people that have mental illness do, they split. So they're splitting our kids. So she's doing catch up in her desistance. So she just turned 18 last week. So through this, I think like anybody that's had like a really life altering experience, there's a wisdom that comes with it and also an immaturity because they've missed out on some developmental stuff. Like the 2 years that she was saying she was a boy and calling herself another name, she was missing out on the developmental um, parts of like navigating the world of girl, you know, the ins and outs of, you know, Mean Girls, you know, um, that whole thing that like even if boys like they're missing out on that world of boy, what is it to be in that? So there's like a catch up. I feel like a little bit of regression happens with desistance. There a little bit of staying a little childlike happens, but then huge cognitive leaps come in where the I never want to have kids to I think one day I want to have kids. It's like, oh, okay. You know, uh, so so now it's and just being open really to discuss what happened. You know, for me as a parent, when we go back to the lonely place, like you know, in June when parents are like celebrating graduation and they're like so happy and they're taking pictures, I was numb. I was completely numb. I was checked out. My husband wanted to yell and at the principal and give her his 2 cents. And I kept saying, this is our daughter's day. This is her graduation day. Luckily, I had a friend take pictures because I was so out of it to have to sit there and look at her groomers on stage, the principal and the biology teacher and all the other people who participated in undermining me as a parent. Um, I kind of went into a really weird numb place for about 2 months afterwards because it's for me, I kind of equated it to having a baby. You just want that baby out. Like I couldn't wait for that day to happen. I just wanted out. I wanted it to be done.
And what have you done since graduation? What is next for you?
So I've moved into a parent advocate role. Uh, I have parents come from all different places, different sources to organizations. Uh, and I help them navigate, either dealing with the school. I have some parents in Connecticut. I dealt with the school district for them, and I kept them anonymous because of my, you know, experience of schools retaliating. Help them navigate through meetings, public records request if they have, if they need a lawyer, I'll connect them to a lawyer. On my own, when I became a support group leader for ROG parents, but I noticed that parents, every time they came to me, they were looking for a therapist. ROGD Parents does not do that. So I stepped down as a support group leader and I started vetting therapists on my own. So I have a little list of well vetted therapists. And so if a parent comes to me and they want a therapist, I'll vet the therapist for them, or I've got quite a few now. Like a whole bunch came out of the woodwork in Washington. And what I noticed that therapists they want to talk too because they feel so alone. So I'll connect them to a therapist that will do, exploratory therapy with their kid. I'm also working on a project that hopefully one day will benefit parents and our nation's public school system, because the social transition needs to be eradicated out of our school system.
Lydia McLaughlin, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the full podcast. The Distance is an encampment for everyone made politically homeless by gender ideology. Visit our website at www.thedistancemag.com to support our work with a monthly or annual premium subscription.